It is the 2nd of December, 1939, and a British cargo liner navigates the treacherous waters off the west coast of South Africa. On board, the crew discusses the terrifying reality of the German threat, noting that another ship was sunk just south of them the week prior. Suddenly, the peace is shattered by the roar of shelling. They are under attack. On the bridge, Captain William Stubbs is already on full alert. His binoculars reveal a terrifying sight: a 16,000-ton German monster stalking them. A heavy cruiser-sized ship armed with battleship-sized 11-inch guns. A pocket battleship. Stubbs orders full power and a distress signal to be sent as the small ship turns to flee, transmitting every piece of information they can in their final minutes. A light blinks from the enemy in Morse code, ordering them to cease transmission. Stubbs roars, "To hell with that! Keep transmitting! Make sure every ship in the region knows they're here!" As the enemy grows on the horizon, Stubbs recognizes the profile of the massive 280mm guns. It is the Admiral Graf Spee. He orders the ship's identity to be put in the transmission, even as the fearsome warship closes in. With continued resistance becoming dangerous, Stubbs has no choice but to surrender, ordering the power cut, and the transmission stopped. The Doric star falls quiet as Captain Hans Wilhelm Langsdorff watches his men board the cargo ship, take the crew captive, and sets scuttling charges with professional precision. Stubbs is taken to the brig, hearing the massive explosions wash across the waves, followed by the cheers of German sailors as the cargo hauler sinks into the abyss. Thousands of miles away, the Royal Navy Squadron hears the dying transmissions of the Doric star. Commodore Henry Harwood receives the report that the Graf Spee has claimed another victim and begins to plan. Under his command are the heavy cruiser Exeter and the light cruisers Ajax and Achilles, patrolling the coast of South America far from the scene of the battle. Harwood senses that after months of chasing the Graf Spee, they can finally bring its rampage to an end. He suspects the next target will be South American traffic at the River Plate, a choke point for cargo ships headed for the Argentine and Uruguayan capitals. The 16,000-ton Graf Spee turns for this new destination, unaware it is falling directly into Harwood's grasp. On the morning of December 15th, 13 days after the loss of the Doric star, Captain Frederick Secker Bell supervises the activity on the Exeter. The squadron has been patrolling the estuary for days when a lookout suddenly reports smoke at 3:20. Bell orders the ship to investigate and calls the men to action stations, loading semi-armor-piercing shells as they approach the mysterious ship. As the masts, superstructure, and mighty guns come into view, it is clear the Germans have arrived. Bell confirms it is a pocket battleship and prepares for a showdown that has been months in the making. Harwood orders the Exeter to charge from the south, while the rest of the force executes a flank from the east as practiced. Despite being outclassed by shells over twice as heavy as his own, Bell proceeds at flank speed, trusting in their numerical advantage. Captain Langsdorff accepts the challenge on the horizon, and the two forces close the distance. The Graf Spee's massive turrets traverse and fire the first shots of the Battle of the River Plate. The shells splash into the sea, and Exeter's gunnery officer, Richard Jennings, remembers Captain Bell hailing him with the roar, "There's the fucking sheer! Open fire at her!" The Exeter unleashes its guns, but the shots fall short. The German warship finds its aim, littering the deck with deadly shrapnel. The Exeter adjusts its range and strikes the Graf Spee's hull with its 8-inch batteries, though the armor holds. Deep inside the German ship, Captain Stubbs hears the shell strikes reverberating through his cell. A massive German salvo detonates just yards away from the Exeter, the shock and shrapnel taking out the ship's radio. Bell refuses to turn back even as shells impact the Graf Spee's deck and wreck anti-aircraft guns. Bell watches as the massive guns fire again. The shells linger in the air for eternal seconds. The brutal impact takes out a turret and sends shrapnel effortlessly through the bridge's thin walls. Bell is thrown to the floor, dazed but largely unhurt. With determination, he returns to his post only to find his communications destroyed. He abandons the bridge for the after-conning station and recruits a team of messengers to control the ship. Damage control, the magazines and the turrets are now linked only by runners. The ship turns starboard and launches torpedoes, but they miss their target. Bell refuses to stand down, and the remaining turrets continue to fire at the Graf Spee's heavy armor. Finally, a round pierces the armor and detonates deep within, destroying the fuel purification plant. Though it causes no immediate fires, it dooms the ship by cutting its usable fuel from days to hours. Another salvo falls on the Exeter, setting fire to an ammunition rack, but the flames are quelled by brave sailors. Richard Jennings abandons the control tower and runs through the chaos to reach the last working main gun, climbing to the top of the turret to shout directions. He is blasted with gas and heat, but takes it, calling for fire as the Ajax and Achilles close the distance. Harwood becomes impatient as he sees the Exeter smoking and listing while the Graf Spee stands seemingly unharmed. He orders his ships to close the distance at utmost speed to rescue the Exeter. Langsdorff deploys a smokescreen, but Jennings continues his assault from atop the turret. A massive German volley creates a splash right in front of Jennings's face, but he is unfazed until the turret loses power due to flooding in the hull. Furious, Captain Bell orders the ship to turn starboard for one final desperate move. "I'm going to ram that bastard." Just then, a salvo from the Ajax and Achilles brackets the Graf Spee with vastly improved accuracy. Langsdorff orders a retreat toward Montevideo, as the British cruisers pummel his upper deck for another hour. Harwood, shocked to find only 20% of his ammunition remains, holds fire and pulls back to pursue the enemy into neutral waters. In Montevideo, the prisoners of the Doric Star are released, but the Graf Spee's problems worsen as the British broadcast signals suggesting reinforcements have arrived. With no fuel reserves and strict orders not to let the ship be interned, Langsdorff believes he has no choice but to scuttle the ship. On December 17th, the ship is scuttled. Langsdorff writes that he alone bears the responsibility and is happy to pay with his life for the honor of the flag. 3 days later in Buenos Aires, he takes his gun and keeps his word. The mighty ship burns for 2 days, marking a great success for the Royal Navy. Harwood is promoted and knighted, Jennings receives the Distinguished Service Cross, and Bell returns home to a hero's welcome.